Hey guys, back here once again, and this time with a new review of Matoma's new album, One in a Million. Now, this is technically his second studio album, but it's a little strange because his first studio album, Hakuma Matoma, was just kind of a collection of one-off singles and remixes and features that he'd done, that he kind of all just put together for like a 15, 16 track album, and it doesn't really feel the same as like a mindset thing to all have this formed into a select project. And One in a Million is more of this kind of normal approach where the songs were made for this exact album, other than a few examples I'll get into a little bit. But the album was created with a few lead singles and then like just the bulk coming out at once. Matoma takes on the role of being another one of those EDM artists that is like, he's definitely mainstream within the EDM realm, but outside of that, he's kind of like semi-popular. I mean, he has a ton of semi-popular songs that you may not hear on the radio all the time, but maybe every once in a while. And other artists that come to mind that are kind of like him, not stylistically, but more in like popularity sense and like the range of music they kind of make is like Yellow Claw, Tritonal, and Cash Cash. Matoma in particular kind of focuses more on this tropical house, which was what really boosted him and garnered him some fame in the first place, and has more recently kind of brought in some future bass elements, and this kind of used the two to really form this unique style that is his, but yet is still relatable to a lot of other EDM that is out today. The album opens up with the title track of One in a Million that really isn't that spectacular or anything, kind of just an average track that's not great, not really bad at all, but then follows into what was the third single for the album, which was I Don't Dance Without You, with Enrique Iglesias and Conscience, I believe, something like that is how his name is pronounced. And this song is definitely striving to be more of a actual hit than an EDM track, as it really doesn't really focus on Matoma's style and how he works that much, and more just on the melody and voice of Enrique Iglesias. And you can hear this definitely through the chorus, where it sounds like something that you would listen to for Enrique and not for Matoma. Personally, I do kind of have a hard time listening to Enrique on this track, not really because he sounds bad or because of a personal vendetta against him or anything, but when I did listen to him a bit more when I was like a young teen and kind of still a kid, I have a hard time dissociating him from that stage in my life. And even though there is a lot of other Latin music on this album, he just doesn't seem to really fit in, as it feels like he's being forced in there with my brain kind of being like, no, he should be over here in this other section of music that you listen to. And it doesn't really ruin the song or anything. It's still just a pretty decent song, but it kind of makes it hard for me to listen to this one in order with the album, as I kind of have an issue with it being in order with the album. The track Sunday Morning, featuring Josie Dunn, is a bit of a return to some more EDM for Matoma. It isn't really his typical style either, but it's still somewhat reminiscent, as it really features Josie's strong, girthy vocals during the chorus, along with these sharp strings that really hit hard along with her voice, and this all just builds up to a choir and string instrumental that comes in grandly. Then a few tracks later is the song False Alarm, featuring Becky Hill, and this is one of the exceptions I was kind of talking about, as this was like the lead song on Hakuna Matoma, and yet here it is found on this album as well, and it does kind of have an older sound, but does kind of still stand up to the One in a Million standards. Isn't really bad on here or anything, and it is a good song in general, so I wasn't really like sad to see it on here. I'm wondering why he chose this one, considering there were other tracks he released that with that style that I don't think he put on Hakuna Matoma that he could have put on here, but nevertheless it's still a decent song. Becky does deliver a good job singing on this, but it does kind of fit the stereotype in EDM as well, of having a girl singer with a good voice just singing over some up to a house drop or something. So it does seem a little stereotypical in that sense, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. I mean, I love a ton of songs like this, including this one, but it is something that I heard it and kind of was like, oh, that's kind of not that different. Lonely, featuring Max, is one of my favorite tracks on the album, as it was, I believe, the second single, and it really delivers with a strong, great verse and chorus and vocal performance overall from Max. And I kind of expected this, as that is what he's kind of known for having from his YouTube days to his feature days and then so on. So I was pleasant. I wasn't really surprised, but I was happy with what he delivered with. And the instrumental, the drop on this too, was something that I felt was really unique, as it has this really heavy yet wiry synth or something that just comes in during the drop, and around this future bass kind of overhang, it kind of just exudes this new sound that I hadn't really heard before from Matoma or really anywhere else in future bass, and it was really kind of a cool thing to experience for a first time. And I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of more wiry, kind of wobbly sound kind of catches on a bit more. Slow with Noah Cyrus is a track I was actually pretty pleasantly surprised with on this album, as I'm not typically a big fan of hers, but she does sound like pretty finely tuned and doesn't strain her voice where she starts sounding a little nasally or strange. Not to forget, there's this really kind of cool wavy future bass sound that comes over the chorus that while Noah is just using her voice and just going off, and that really completes the song, and it's something I was really happy with when this was released. All Night is the other exception to this being a more formed album, as this was released before all the singles, I believe, and it's included on Day and Night, the Vamps album. And even as I listened to the album, like in the corner on Spotify, it shows me, while I'm listening to One in a Million, when All Night comes on, it shows me the cover for Day and Night. So I kind of wonder why he chose to put this one on here as well. It was like an actual hit too, so I could see that, but at the same time, that can seem a little tacky. But the song overall really does deliver, and it does fit the aesthetic, especially at this point in the album too, where there's a lot of more future-based sounds, and it's not as much as that more poppy or Latin style as we heard earlier on in the album. In this one, though, he kind of has a more generic style of future bass, as where Lonely and Slow kind of mixed it up a little bit and just had future bass kind of as a guide or a starting point, and then went off in its own direction. But All Night definitely just sounds like future bass. That's really all it is. It's very a generic style, but really what I still enjoy this track a lot because the sounds aren't generic. They are very well crafted and well made, regular future bass noises that I feel a lot of producers can't really get to. And Matoma, of course, being one of the top people in his line, I kind of expect this from. So this is a pleasantly good song. Then there's also Pieces featuring Noah Khan, and that kind of builds up with a piano and Noah's kind of light vocals, and building up until this kind of cut or push and cut kind of chorus where Noah kind of goes more in before fading back into a more lighter, softer Noah verse. And this kind of goes for a few times, and it's a pretty delightful song. I like it quite a bit. Finally, the closing track, Not Coming Home, featuring JRM, is probably my favorite vocal and melodic performance on this album, and with like even a little inclusion of like maybe a hint of dubstep, or just like kind of a bit more wild, weird EDM, where there's this kind of like bubble that pops around at certain points in the song that I thought was a unique addition to the song. It really kind of made it stand out during the verses. But the issue I do have with this song, though, is the drop on it just sounds wrong. I was really let down because everything else in the song sounds so perfected and perfect and good, but the drop just really misses, as it has JRM just scream yeah over a really bland, uninspired kind of instrumental, and the JRM's yeah really doesn't match how good his voice sounds and really the instrumental whatsoever either. And so I was kind of disappointed. I'm really split on the song even still, as I do enjoy listening to it, but I kind of lose interest once that first drop hits. Matoma delivers by sticking to his guns and delivering at what he knows best, but yet still keeping it interesting and fresh. A few mediocre tracks kind of here and here that I didn't really hate, didn't really like, are here and there on the album, but aren't really anything terrible. There are a few points, exact moments where I can think of, like the Not Coming Home drop, where I'm like, that is not right, but it's nothing really enough to really make me dislike this album as a whole. The upsides of this album really come through on the more EDM songs, as that's kind of what I listened to Matoma for as an EDM artist. But like Lonely, Slow, Lost at Sea, All Night, Sunday Morning, and a few others. Songs more like those are what I did enjoy. And then also to note, this was kind of more of a singles album too, even though a lot of these, there were 5 singles from this album. 2 of them weren't technically for this album, but still, regardless, 5 songs were released prior. But the album as a whole kind of is a singles album, as there really isn't any just like instrumentals or intro, outro, interludes, anything like that, which isn't necessary. But if all the songs do kind of have a similar single feel, it can kind of get a little like, okay, this still doesn't really feel like an album. And Matoma kind of does struggle from that a little bit, as every song is trying to be a single. But in the end, like I said, the songs were fairly good, and I did enjoy a fair amount of them. And so in the end, I think I'm going to rate this album at an 8. So tell me what you guys thought of the album and the review here down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. And tell me what I should review next, because I'm always open to more stuff. So yeah, I'll talk to you next time. See you guys.